I wrote about it recently. Like a great technology exists when it disappears. Like when you can't see it each day, but you use it and it doesn't affect you in a negative way, and it's supporting, providing good outcomes for your business and ultimately your patients. Like that should be what you're striving for as you build a tech solution going into next year and the year after. All right, here we are. Everybody that's been waiting. Another
Back.
episode. I should just call this thing the Clayton and Matt Show. We don't need a brand it DSO Compass off script. The Clayton and Matt Show. Everybody, all of our fans have been waiting, I'm sure, eagerly
Bated
anticipating
breath.
another another episode. Here's where we're at with format. In conversations Clayton and I have had, and also some feedback I've gotten from people that have listened, which we appreciate, is we're just going to keep this thing relatively quick. I think long form podcast, unless you're Joe Rogan, which we're not, and nor are we trying to be, are getting a little played out. So we want to keep this a little snappy. We want to talk mostly like technology specific. So things that we're seeing in the space from the perspective of somebody that works a lot with DSOs, but is on the vendor, go to market strategy side of things. And then somebody like a Clayton that's experienced that, but is an operator inside a DSO. So for today, we thought it'd be a good idea to talk through the year in review that we saw in 2025 coming up, which is crazy. I can't believe we're almost to 2026
We're
already, but
almost there. What a
no,
year it was.
yeah, no snow in Park City, which is depressing, but that's probably for another podcast. But yeah, it's a crazy year in tech. I don't think personally, Clayton, like I've seen anything. And look, I have a different lens on things now than I did maybe in my, Carestream or Densify or Align Technology days than I do now. But I don't remember so much money being invested with new companies inside this dental space. Like I think I saw an article, it was like $150 million just in dental tech over the last 18 to 24 months. You've got Y Combinator companies. Like some people listen to this are like, what's Y Combinator companies, right? Like Y
Yeah,
Combinator
it's
startups,
me a couple years ago.
right? I mean, all these Y Combinators, YC companies coming into the fray, young tech leaders, a lot of stuff around AI. I think I write about this a lot, so maybe if I could kick it over to you, Clayton, with some general thoughts or some highlights for you on tech
Yeah.
and the industry itself in this past year.
Yeah, it was a wild year, right? I mean, I think we saw this evolution of our industry happening right before our eyes. We've had some conversations about this, and I think over the past couple of years, you throw the words AI, you kind of tout some revolutionary tech from kind of anybody outside the industry coming into the dental industry. I think could sort of pontificate right on here's what we have or here's what we can do, and a lot of things were taken at face value. And I think 2026 was the 2026, the year we will be in. 2025 was the year that we really started to parse through these offerings, these platforms. As people just the word AI didn't have the buzzword lost a little bit of its buzz, right? If everybody's using it, it's not a buzzword anymore. It just kind of becomes the norm, and people started really more than just playing with these tools. People started implementing these tools into their daily life, as we can see, across the board and outside of our industry as well. But so we started looking at everything with a little more of a critical eye. I think that's really the year of 2025 in a nutshell. That no longer are the days where you can kind of make these promises or you're the smartest person in the room when it comes to your tech or your AI, because people have really caught up, especially the tech leaders within these different organizations. So that's really like the overarching theme to me is that there's a lot of promise on the horizon. There's a lot that we know we can do in this industry, and we know we can do better, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
think
that would be my sum up of the year.
yeah, I I, I think it's a good sum up. What about from like even Dykema to now? like you don't need to give specifics on what's going on inside of what you're doing every day, but it almost seems like a month to month, almost week to week thing in my world of the capabilities that exist inside some of these solutions. And when we say AI, like the Pearls and the Overjets and the Vidias of the world, they've been around, so they were AI. They were kind of the beginning of
Hmm.
this train, but the functional, as you put it, operational AI, like, do you see it being even different from the summer till now in their capabilities and the impact that they can have inside of a dental practice and a DSO? Like, are you seeing that firsthand?
I, I would have liked to have seen the capabilities evolved more than I've seen. If anything, I feel like when you set Dykema as kind of your anchor for the year, there was so much promise at that meeting. It was this swell, this oncoming swell. And look, I'm not saying we haven't reached any of that promise. There are a lot of good things being worked on. There's a lot of companies working in a lot of different directions, and you could argue they maybe need to tighten those up and work in less directions to focus on a few things more than try to focus on everything. But kind of that notwithstanding, I mean, I think if you set Dykema as your anchor point, I think where maybe it's just me where I thought we would be at this point in the year was just farther along. I just thought we would. I it felt like the train was moving so fast, and I get it. It is. We're pushing the boundaries here. Things are moving, but I thought more of this would be integrated more easily. There's a lot of challenges that come with all these different platforms and everything that we're working towards in the industry. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on it? I mean, I just feel like there was so much buzz at Dykema. I just thought we were rapidly progressing towards the future. Maybe I just assumed we would get there faster than we were able to so far.
I I, I I'm wondering if it's capabilities of the tech itself, the capabilities of the companies that are working with the DSOs, and I think we speak mostly about DSOs, right? Um, like,
It's
is
on
it?
your hat, so I think we have.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think we have to.
branding. Is it the capabilities of these companies to not be able to execute, or is it the DSO that isn't necessarily able to roll it out and scale it more effectively, or
Yeah,
is it a
it's tough.
combination, right?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely a combination. It's got to be. I mean, that's what you see, right? I mean, you live in this. I mean, it's definitely a combination, right?
I I I feel like it's a combination because the promises were definitely there. There was a ton of buzz at Dykema, and I just think there was so much competition to say that they're the best platform. You got to use us, got to use us.
Yeah.
And I just think they got in over their skis about what they could actually execute on. And now we're at a point now where DSOs are listening to that and seeing, maybe like you're saying, the result of the promises versus what can actually be executed on. And I've been thinking a lot about lately about like shared success. Like, it really should be shared success from the DSO level to the vendor to the offices and the practice level, the doctors being happy, teams, then ultimately patients. So overall, how that communication happens, I feel like
Yeah.
is in a place where it shouldn't be, if that makes sense.
Well, I think, look, there's no doubt that you can be brand new to this industry. You can be an industry veteran. Dental offices are hard to operate. A lot of dental offices put together become even more hard to operate. We get it. There's challenges that come on this side. The challenges on the vendor side is kind of what you're saying. I mean, let's set some mutually agreed upon win-win growth type of goals, and really probably be better off to really focus on those, not what's coming, or this is also what we're developing, or it feels like there's pieces in place on all different DSO businesses and private practice offices as well. There's these pieces in place, And instead of really drilling down on what is there and how we better perfect what is there, everybody's focusing on the next thing. And it's probably like you said, it's an arms race. It's who's going to get insurance verification first? Who's going to be integrated with this first? Who's going to be the best at doing this and that and give this in the least amount of steps? And then, who can solve all your issues across marketing and RCM and all these different departments within the group versus just honing in on what's there and really dialing it in by the numbers, by the metrics, setting those, clearly defining them. It just feels like there's a miss there where the core never got fully integrated, and then we're trying to layer on, and
Yeah.
and it's because I think there's just the thing is moving at a rapid pace. There's so many small entities and other organizations kind of nipping at the bigger ones that you mentioned earlier's heels, that they feel like they have to kind of innovate or die, right? Or innovate or be caught.
And I'm wondering too about the bigger ones like the Overjets and the Pearls and the Vidias of the world. We've seen some consolidation with some of these larger companies, like the Overjet Dental Beat thing that recently happened. Weave and TrueLark that happened this year as well. Maybe these companies that already have the traction, like the Overjets and the Pearls of the world, if they can't develop it, they can buy it.
Yeah.
And now it's
Then
like,
they got to integrate it.
then they got to integrate it, which is a whole different animal. Like
A
we could
whole different
probably,
thing.
yeah. But what about these companies in your mind, like an Overjet or Pearl or whomever, being developing like an ecosystem? Because I talk a lot about lately about point solutions versus like an integrated, fully integrated solution that does a lot of different things. Like I feel like that's the way we're going. Do you have any thoughts on like an Overjet being the source of truth for AI, and then me buying certain like an RCM company, an AI virtual assistant
Yeah.
company, and integrating that all together so it's a one point like Apple like experience. You
Yeah,
have
but
your
Apple
iPad,
builds it
you
all.
have your
Well, they do
phone.
buy. I
Yeah,
guess they acquire too. Apple's acquired too, so I get it. They do a really good job of rolling it in to their ecosystem. So they are the ecosystem, and that's, I mean, that's the tough part. The change management part on the DSO side is the toughest part. And really, if you think about it, yes, everybody wants that. Everybody wants the. Why would we want more platforms on the business and more monthly payments and more, more agreements have to, it'd be so great to have something that can do so many things well, but they've got to change management on their own side. Now you're rolling in this other culture and this other company into this, and they've got to integrate on, and that all that stuff just takes time. So,
yeah,
we're it's never a this the world's moving too fast to kind of wait till everything's there to move forward. So I get why they're always in such a hurry, and why probably the DSOs and me and everybody else are always in such a hurry, because we all want to get there because the promise is so great. But we're not. The stuff that just happened this year is not fully integrated in those companies that you just mentioned, and probably won't be through next year, maybe even into the next year. And then there's probably gonna be more acquisitions. So how do they
yeah,
continuously roll all that in and make it all fit and work? And the companies that can do that the best, you got to think it's going to be your Overjets, your Pearls, your Vidias that are in the pole position to be able to do that. So I don't know.
yeah.
This seems like what we're
It,
seeing.
it seems to be a trend. I think it's a good segue. You talked a little bit about next year. What like my take on next year. I mean, going into this year, is that we had an election that happened, right? And there was so much focus on the ability to have M&A active, recaps. None of you can't buy equity anymore. It's same store growth. Brian Caleo, right? Same store growth, same store growth, same store growth. And I feel like the panic, at least in my circles, has gone away. Like the M&A is happening. DSOs are buying practices actively, not at a level that we saw in the past because you really can't do that any longer.
For good reason. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely for good reason. I mean, there's been some interesting stuff like the Park Dental we talked about before. Smile Partners recapped this year back, I think, February. I don't see any of that shifting. I don't know if it's ever going to shift ever. Are we ever going to get back to that point? Probably not. I just feel like the continuous focus on same store growth is going to continue for a very long time. And how does that affect technology? I think that affects technology, and how are we going to have a software platform that supports that growth internally inside the practice level? Like I still see there being so much focus on that, which means you're going to be focused on doctors to create revenue, right? So tools that support growth inside the practices will still be the focus, and what those are, that remains to be seen. But that's kind of my take going into the next year. Certainly specifics around AI companies we could probably get into, but any general thoughts on that overall take?
I think it's where all this came from. And look, the moment people had to start focusing on that same store growth that you're talking about, then the rise of Pearl and Overjet, because then the rise of like a PMS and Planet DDS and the cloud basis, then all of this started happening because all these groups realized we have to do this. This is no longer like a nice to have. This is no longer something we can put off. There's nothing else to do as a business. There was nothing else to do over the past couple of years. People weren't acquiring. So if you can't grow and the cat's out of the bag and you can't buy EBITDA anymore, and it's not the way this thing is really operating anymore. We got to have the platforms and the programs to be able to run that. And a byproduct of that, just step away from tech for a second. And I know that's your world, but just like the way these groups are becoming more polished at operating themselves has been something to see, especially from my vantage point. The operators are getting much more skilled in this business. This is not that old of a business. There's a lot of these newcomers that popped up and they have hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. They're not small companies by any means. And sometimes those people helping to operate these companies had just come from being an office manager that now had 8 offices or 10 offices, and that level of acumen wasn't there. I feel like we're catching up big time. There's a lot. I'm just seeing sharper and sharper operating minds coming into this business. I'm seeing sharper and sharper operating minds being born from this business, where they've now had years under their belt of training. Now the tools and the AI and the tech, now the promise of some of that can be realized as we understand. And there's been great operators in this business in the past, but they've just not at the level we've needed them to elevate the whole.
Or have they been like screaming on the rooftops? Like, we need to do it like this. Why are we doing it like this? Oh, we're just going to buy 5 practices. Like, don't worry about it. Like, maybe they're coming to
they've been operating. I think they've been doing their thing in some of these larger groups, and I think that there's some of the larger groups that you've seen grow. I think there's been a lot of talent, and the talent has been doing it and sharing. But if other now mid-sized, smaller groups are recognizing there's more talent to be had in their midst as well. So like, there's just more out there to be had across the board. More people that understand more in depth what truly moves the needle in the business, which all comes down. We could talk tech and AI all day, but it all comes down to kind of the tip of that spear, that office manager, those doctors, those hygienists, those dental assistants, the front desk. Like, yes, there are platforms and things to put onto that and make it more efficient and smoother and recognize more efficiencies, and there's that everywhere. But in the end all be all is still like that office and those people. And if a person can help to unlock true efficiencies in those offices, I feel like we've taken a shift on a couple different areas. It's not just the tech and AI. Tech and AI is sexy and it's cool and it's cutting edge, but the nuts and bolts of this thing remain the same. And I think we've gotten better at really dialing that in.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, because I really have learned how important the operator, especially at a large DSO, how much those operators impact the performance of those practices, right? And that communication of the why behind we're doing certain things at that corporate, that centralized location or whatnot. Like I feel like it's just been magnified quite a bit over the past year, and I'm wondering if those performers were just hiding or they just weren't being seen because it was a facade of growth that was happening throughout the industry. It's super interesting to think about.
I think they weren't being seen, and look, you were at Align Technology. I mean, I was there at 3M when Align Technology was on that trajectory, up and away, and there was no competition. And I, hey, look, there's probably people that were working back then that are saying we were the best reps in the business, but the way they looked from the outside was that they had it good. They could just kind of sit back and only game in town, and people were starting to respond, and the marketing was working, and people were coming in from out. So yeah, you don't get as sharp. You don't have to sharpen your skills as much as you would if there's cutthroat competition out there.
Yep.
When you're tasked with growing your offices, and it's not just, oh, they just bought another 8 in my region. Then you got to onboard. Then you're like worried about so many other things. When you really sit back and say, how do I actually grow these offices? That's going to sharpen a skill set quick. So I don't know if they were hiding. I just think the industry had to take a good hard look at itself, and the groups had to take a good hard look at themselves and just say, how can we be better
It
across the
seems
board?
like a reset. It
Yeah.
absolutely seems like a reset. The competition thing, speaking on tech again, I think that stuff's going to sort itself out this year. Maybe it won't be completely sorted out because you're going to have companies that get bought, like the TrueLarks and
Hmm.
the Dental Bees of the world. You're also going to have some that start to distance themselves, in my opinion, and become the leaders. And you're going to have some that, frankly, maybe run out of money. Like they're not able to go to market, or they just decide like I'm getting out of this vertical. I can't deal with all these dental people anymore. And
We
then
could be tough to deal with.
yeah, we're a little cult like. We have a way of self governing ourselves within this industry, though. I think you probably admit. So I
Yeah.
think when I look at this coming year, I think some of that consolidation is going to continue to happen. I think some of these companies are going to start to really distance themselves as leaders in the space. And ultimately, it's going to be a lot easier to evaluate what solutions you all work with. I had a CEO of a 40 location DSO last week. I had a conversation, and he said, I just can't keep up with everything right now. It's almost a full time job to understand what tech exists and where he should focus his time. I feel like some of that maybe will dwindle. Like we're gonna have some that continue to come into the space, but like some of that maybe will stop as much. I don't know. Do you think that's the
Yeah,
case?
I think the trial and error. You let the trial and error happen with the not 40 location group that probably would really struggle to put the head count in place if that CEO really wanted to vet everything out there, because you've got to have a system, probably people, at least a person, um, that could be a consultant or a fractional, but you if you really want to go and integrate, you want to have that person there with you, and I'm not sure that at that level that can support that. So yeah, I think 2026 is going to be a year where a lot of this stuff's being trialed out right now in 2025. A lot of the trial and error hopefully can be weeded out by either somebody that does have those resources or somebody that did just dive in, that's in that situation and just picked one and dove in, and it's right or it's wrong or it worked or it didn't, and we have a little more data on why it did or didn't work. So yeah, it's 2026 will be an interesting year. I think you're right. I think there's going to be a little bit of a shakedown happening in a lot of ways. And like I said at the beginning, people are a little more savvy on what they're looking for in these platforms, and so the expectations are going to be there. And the people that can live up to their side of the bargain, to what they agreed to, are going to be the people that
Yeah,
continue to push it forward.
yeah, I agree. I think there'll be a continued effort and maybe a more vocal effort on patient experience. because patient experience, if it's high, if it's positive, I shouldn't say high, patient experience is a positive experience, is one that you can track and measure and find out like where that experience is a good positive experience and how that impacts the data and the numbers of the practice, and being able to track all of that is going to be super interesting. And the continued focus on doctors, supporting them, because they're the growth drivers, they're the revenue drivers of these DSOs, right? They're the ones that provide the patient experience. And from my perspective, to a continued effort of DSOs to understand their data, making sure they have clarity in data, making sure they understand where their gaps are, and in some cases where they can plug tech in there. And then the AI
Yeah, that's never
component.
been clearer. I mean,
No,
that
yeah,
the clarity in data is relatively new in this space as well for most. Won't say for all, but for most. So this past year and a half, maybe 2 years is really where all of that start to has come into focus. So, but yeah, you're right. I mean, and there's a lot of pieces out there for clinicians, for hygienists, and for other team members in the office that there's just so much advancement in so many different areas that if we can kind of get it right, we really should be able to bring all that to them, which in the end all be all is that patient experience, like you
yeah.
mentioned. I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road in all of this.
And if technology can exist, if platforms can continue to work hard to understand what these practices and DSOs are up against and do a good job of being, I wrote about it recently, like a great technology exists when it disappears. Like when you can't see it each day, but you use it and it doesn't affect you in a negative way, and it's supporting, providing good outcomes for your business and ultimately your patients. Like that should be what you're striving for as you build a tech solution going into next year and the year after, with all of the abilities that we have and the tech solutions that are out there. So
Yeah,
that's kind of it for me, dude.
yeah.
Any predictions, anything top of mind for you that going into next year that you're excited about? Or I'm sure you're busy as all heck. You're planning on going to some conferences next year.
Yeah.
Maybe not as many. Any general thoughts on 2025, 26?
Yeah, I mean, look, all the stuff we just talked about. It's going to be every year in dental is an interesting year. I mean, you could go back and kind of classify 2025 as the year of, and 2024 as the year of, and probably get a pretty good snapshot that way. That I might have to do that just as an exercise. But 2026, when I think, I mean, it's like this confluence of what we just said: data and tech and AI and new platforms, and then the nuts and bolts and people just getting better at the same store growth and operations, as well as hopefully you alluded to the M&A side. If we can get that, I think the same store growth part was to prove that this model can be operated and operated well. And the platform, the DSO as a platform can be put on top of an
Yep.
office and function and drive efficiencies in a way that people are happy as well, right? It's not just just trying to push everybody to their limits, but people are happy with how this is being done, and these efficiencies are being recognized responsibly, and the patient scores are going up, and all of that. So 2026, I mean, I'm the eternal optimist, but I'm very hopeful for that. Kind of, it can be this confluence of a lot of these different factors that take us to a place that we haven't really seen in dental before. But like I said,
I'm
I'm
with you.
always glass half full guy. So yeah, is that how you're feeling too?
That's how, I mean, I'm feeling that way. There's gonna be stuff that's a shit show, which it always is. But I think
Always.
we have to think about this in a shared success kind of way, because I think when we do that, everything's going to trickle down to the patients, and we're all going to be fat and happy, which
Yep.
I'll be over the holidays. So wishing you happy holidays, man.
Can't wait.
Thankful for our friendship that developed in 2025. So appreciate you being a part of my life and this podcast, and all the conferences I'm sure we'll be at, bro, hugging it up. So looking forward to next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, back at you, man. It's been a great year. It's been a great year for this is a relationship business, and Appreciate you as well, and all the relationships made this year, and it's been a good one. It really has been a good one. So just looking forward to what's to come.
All right, man. Absolutely. All right. Thanks
All right.
everybody for listening. Hopefully you made it through. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Well, everybody.